Now, let me add this crazy fucking Christian element to this. At reader-supported news, piece written by Carol Woolman, Global Warming, Trump, and the Rapture Cult. That would be Christianity. Why does Donald Trump continue to deny climate change despite the escalating evidence and drastic weather changes? There are two main reasons. The obvious one is that his billionaire friends are heavily invested in polluting industries: oil, gas, weapons, coal, nuclear, chemical, pharmaceutical companies, and their main executives and investors support Trump's presidency. He allies with nations with the same priorities: Russia, Saudi Arabia, and now Brazil. By appointing officials who loosen environmental safeguards and impede the transition to renewable energy, Trump pleases the donors who fund his campaign and its perks. There is a deeper, more sinister reason that Trump is accelerating global warming. This must be addressed directly. If the headlong rush to extinction is to be stopped, we must confront the Christianity of Trump's supporters and the pernicious pie-in-the-sky theology that keeps them in his camp. While fought in the political arena, this is a deeply spiritual battle. Well, fuck me running. This is what your humble and obedient servant has been saying for years. I don't give a fuck about Christianity per se. It's the Christians that scare the shit out of me because they are rotten, filthy, hypocritical death cult members. And they want us all to die so they can make their way to this phony fucking imaginary heaven that they've constructed. Jesus Christ, I feel like I'm in somebody's bad acid trip. Stuck. Carol goes on. The core of Trump's electoral base consists of evangelical, Bible-based Christians. A large percentage of them believe that Trump is Cyrus, God's tool for bringing about the rapture. Ah! A sci-fi scenario popularized by the widely read Left Behind series, written by a couple of total psychos. The elect, the true believers, that would be Trump's followers, will be raptured up, and the rest of us will be left behind to deal with the destruction of the apocalypse. This is what these filthy fucking bastards believe and put into political practice. And we allow it. They don't care about the ecological havoc being wreaked by the Trump administration. They even welcome it. How many times since your humble and obedient servant said this? Because it will hasten the day, they believe, that Jesus will return and non-believers like the fucking Mike Malloy will be punished. Sick fucks. And you know, the leading evil fucking shade behind this right now is that pissy Mike Pence. Let me go on. A recent film called The Trump Prophecy is being shown in many Bible-based churches where these sick fucks congregate. It not only wants you to believe that God approves of Donald Trump, it wants you to believe that submission to political authority and submission to God are one and the same. Of course, under the U.S. Constitution, political authority, don't laugh, rests ultimately with we the people. and is only vested in elected officials. In the film's theology, resisting the authority of the sitting president, or at least this sitting president, is conflated with resisting God himself, this evil, sick fuck who they believe sits up there above the clouds and says, destroy him! Well, God, if you're so goddamn powerful, why don't you do it? Why are you using a pimp like Donald Trump to do your filthy fucking work, you psycho? You listening? It's like talking to the ceiling. Whew! This may explain why Trump's approval rating remains around 40% no matter what he does. 40% of Americans, 40% of 300 million, that's 120 million people. The rapture interpretation of certain Bible passages is outlined, or is outside of mainstream Christian theology, and it relies on this. Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your descendants may live. That's what mainstream Christians believe. Okay, that's a simple thing. I call heaven and earth to witness this. I've set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your descendants may live. Ooh, big fucking deal. I mean, a 7-year-old can come up with that, okay? But to the ancient Jews, oh, that was a, whoa, fuck me. That's so powerful. And now the current Christians reject it. The Rapture Cult has been carefully fostered since the 70s by right-wing GOP think tanks such as the Hoover Institute in order to bring about the current oligarchy that is running this country. George Lakoff lays it out in detail in his book, Don't Think of an Elephant. The strategy includes bringing right-wing churches into the Republican Party, homeschooling, and reducing fucking women to the pussies that they were intended by God to be. That's Christianity today. Their goals have been achieved. Concentration of wealth, dumbing down of the population, unthinking obedience to authority in the form of a strong father figure. If Trump were my father, I would be guilty of patricide. The Rapture Cult has all the earmarks of a personality cult, similar to those around Stalin and Hitler. Where have you heard this, folks? It rests on a fanatical set of beliefs, control of mass media, and a charismatic figure who preaches prejudice, hate, and persecution of minorities. Gee, who could that? Followers are uncritical of the leader, no matter what he says or does. The Rapture Cult, the Christians, actually are trying to destroy life on earth so that the special group of Christians can be raptured on up. You filthy fuckers, you. Carroll writes, again, it must be understood that the battle to stop Trump is not just economic and political. It is deeply spiritual between those who cherish life and seek to preserve it and those who don't care if life is obliterated because they believe in a new heaven and a new earth. Oh, yes. We're going to, our clothes will fall away and our sex organs will be hanging out and we'll just all float up to heaven. Oh, I've got to get my hair done before it happens. Ooh, ooh, ooh. They ignore Deuteronomy 30:19, in which the biblical God tells us to choose life. The biblical God, my ass. Somebody smart back in the day A Jew sitting with a lamp burning wrote this stuff down. Just like the Jew named Jesus tried to tell people some truths, and look what they did to him. Carol writes, it cannot be emphasized enough that this is a spiritual battle, although it's being fought in the political arena. Trump opponents, that would be you and me, must bring the pernicious Rapture Cult, the Christians, into the light and expose their deceptiveness if we are to preserve life on earth. We must wrest the Bible from the clutches of those who misuse it and show that the values we cherish, love of neighbor, love of truth and justice, dignity of all people, care of the poor and needy, reverence for life, the true biblical values or Jesus values. We must reclaim our spiritual heritage as Martin Luther King Jr. did. We can't afford to wait until 2020 to discredit Trump and his followers. Impeachment now is imperative. Destruction of the future for our youth and all other creatures may not be constitutional grounds for impeachment, but there are plenty of them contained in the Mueller report and Trump's stonewalling. If Pelosi and other so-called centrist Democrats were made to understand the deeper implications of Trump's policies, they would not hesitate to bring impeachment charges. And with the revelations that impeachment hearings would bring about, the Senate, the Republican Senate, might come to its senses and vote for conviction. Vice President Pence, who would succeed Trump, overtly professes belief in the Rapture Cult. These Christian fucks. He would not have the following that Trump has mustered. Lesser of two evils. This deadly cult, these Christians would be exposed for what they are, and life might have a chance to survive. Here it is. You can find this at Reader-Supported News, written by Carol Woolman. I'm not tootling my own horn, but when I read that today, I thought about my open, full frontal attack on these Christian fuckers for the past 10, 15 years, especially the past 3 or 4. And thank God there's somebody out there who has a much bigger forum than I do who is saying the same thing. I'm sure there are a lot of people saying the same thing. If you are a Christian, if you're a member of this Rapture Cult, go fucking kill yourself, okay? And go on up and fulfill what the fuck it is you think is happening. But if you're a Christian in the sense of believing the simple message of the Rabbi Jesus of Nazareth, then tell the Rapture Cult to fuck off. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.